Hi, Craig with leadershipmentor.com. Today I want to talk to you about managing a remote team, the 4 things you must do to keep your team productive. Over the past few months, the way we work and lead other people has changed in really such a big way. So learning how to be an effective leader while not having any face-to-face interaction can be a significant issue for some of us. So I wanted to share with you 4 things that I think are really critical for you as a leader to embrace. The number one area I think that we need to look at is our mindset. So many of us have a tendency to assume that when we can no longer watch over our people, that they're going to start doing things that they shouldn't. So we need to create a mindset of trust and create clarity around performance and deliverables. It's important to have tangible measures for performance. And once we do that, we can let the team members simply accomplish those objectives without having to micromanage them. So the key is really around having those deliverables. So spend some time evaluating really what your mindset is with the team as well as with specific people. And if you find that you have some doubts or concerns, approach them in a positive way by having a good coaching conversation with that person. You may need to create more specific boundaries or expectations for that person based on those behaviors that you're observing. But ultimately, I want to encourage you to assume that each person wants to succeed and perform well. I think the second area, and probably one of the most important, is communication. So when you think about what has changed in this environment, your team members and you have really gone from the ability to have really any type of conversation that you want, whether you're just going by their workstation and you're having a conversation, or if you need to meet with them face to face about maybe a behavior issue. All of that has changed in this environment of remote working. And so I want to encourage you to have more frequent communication. So you can do things like having a daily email update, make it positive and informative to the team members so they feel part of the team and they still feel connected with what's going on. I want to encourage you also to review before sending the tone of your communication. If you're chatting, if you're sending an email, oftentimes our tone can come across differently than what we actually intended it to be. So check that for tone before you send out any communication. I also wanted to share with you the best means of communication is always going to be video first. So that means that you're going to use something like Skype or Zoom where you have visual as well as audio. That's going to be the best method of communication where you can really communicate most effectively with your team members. The next would be audio, where maybe you don't have the visual, but you still have the ability to speak with them and you can hear tones. And then chat would be the next, just simply because it's real time. And so again, you do have to check the tone, but chat allows you to have that real-time communication. And then finally, emails. Just wanted to share that and encourage you to use those video methods as much as possible. And then be creative. Try things like team chats. So maybe at the end of every day or at least once a week, bring your team together in a group chat, or a group video chat would be best. And then just simply have a conversation around, hey, how'd the week go? What are some things you're challenged with? What do you like about working from home? And maybe share some best practice ideas with your team. But these are really simple ways that you can communicate more frequently with your team and do it in a way that you're still building some rapport with your team and really helping them feel like they're still part of the team, even though they're sitting by themselves at home. And then I want to also encourage you to do your one-on-one times. That's always something that I encourage you guys to do, but probably far more important in this work from home environment, that you're taking the opportunity to get on a conversation with them. Again, video chat would be the ideal. Maybe there's things that they're not sharing in those team chats that they would openly share more with you if you're doing one-on-ones. But it's really important that this is looked at as their time. Could just be a 15-minute time once a week. It's just a check-in. How are you doing? How are you adjusting to this? What are some of the challenges? So important that you have the communication element. So the next area we're going to look at is be responsive. Again, not being face-to-face in an office environment makes it more challenging. So you may find that if someone's asking you a question, whether it's in an email or in a chat, and maybe you're researching it, but the person doesn't understand or know, they can't see what you're doing. So if you're not responding right away, oftentimes that can be perceived as not being responsive. So we have to be far more aware of our responsiveness than we do in an office environment. So I want to make sure that we don't make them feel alone, and that just means that we want to respond right away, ask them how they're doing. Not all of our communication really needs to be work-related. If they're asking you a work-related question, you can respond back and say, how are you doing, or how's your day, how are things going? Make them feel part of a conversation and part of a team. Create an easy and real-time option to reach you. That just means that maybe there's a group chat that's always up, and that they can just type in something and you're always watching that or watching it frequently. determine if more communication is needed. And so if we're doing our one-on-ones and these group chats that I want to encourage you to consider, out of those conversations should be things that will tell you if more communication is needed. So if you have, say, a one-on-one, and that one-on-one is scheduled for 15 minutes, but it goes to 30 minutes or more, that's a good indication that there probably needs to be more frequent communication so that those interactions can be shorter, allow the team member to have an avenue to reach out to you more frequently. Keep them informed along the way. This just means that if I have to do some research and you've asked me a question, let them know what's going on. And it might be if they send you an email, and I would respond back right away and let them know, let me look into this. I don't really know off the top of my head. And if this is something that's going to take 3, 4, 5 days, just like we would do with a client or a customer, let's let our team members know what's going on. So I may respond back after, say, a day or two and just say, hey, I haven't forgotten about you. I'm still looking into this to try to get an answer. So being responsive is so critical, so much more so than what it is in the office. The last one I wanted to share with you is to set clear boundaries. And I talked about this really initially with your mindset, but so important that we create positive work-life balances and boundaries. So when we talk about positive work-life balances, what we're going to get out of these one-on-one conversations and these group chats that we have is a sense of how people are dealing with this new environment. I think there's 2 different ways people react to this. One is that I'm somebody that always, because now my work life has invaded my home life, I'm struggling with these boundaries. So I find myself working far more hours because I'm having a hard time turning work off, because as I walk by my work area, I think of things, I go back and I sit down and I do more work. And so those boundaries are really blurred. I think the other opportunity for people is that they struggle being productive in their work time because of distractions. And so I think either one of these is really a challenge. And that's why I want you to really be meeting with your people and get an idea, like, how are they working? How are they functioning? What are they struggling with? And help them to create those balances so that work is work. Outside of work, personal life is personal life. And so help them find ways to shut work off when need be, and then to be more focused during work hours. Think about times of communication. What I mean by that is, don't send an email at 8 o'clock at night, because oftentimes what your team members may do is feel like they need to respond to that. And so they're going to get engaged and go back into work mode when they really should be thinking of family and entertainment and other things. We have to be more conscious of when we're sending communication, because that may send an indication to them that they should be responding. Communicate response time expectations. So this just means that it's important for you as the leader of that team that they understand, like, what's the expectations. And so back to my think about times of communication, maybe what you do in your weekly chats, your one-on-ones, is say, hey, you may get communication from me outside of normal work hours, but I don't expect you to respond to that until you start your next workday. That's just how I'm working. There's times for me as the leader that I may think of something and I want to get it out of my head and get it done. And so I may shoot out an email to you guys, but my expectation is that you don't respond until the next workday. So I hope that makes sense. And then finally, set clear expectations around performance and productivity. And this is a really big area, so one that we probably need to create a separate video on. But like I talked about in the mindset, so important that you have those measurements in place. So you have a really easy way of understanding and knowing how your team is performing. So it just depends on the type of work that they're producing. Make sure that there's a tangible and measurable way for you to measure how well they're doing. Some of that's going to come in the one-on-one conversations that you have with them on a weekly basis, but most of our team members would have something that's a tangible output that would allow you to really evaluate whether they're effective and productive or not. So I hope you found that helpful. Those are just 4 things I think that are so important in a remote work environment. Share with me in the comments what you think, also some other areas. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and that thumbs up. I hope you found that helpful, and I hope you have a great week.